I make a slight cut right there.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to put my fingernail down, and I'm going to try and follow the shape.
Uh-huh.
That stair now, these are all stairs right now, they're all different, and they'll be very interesting when you get done. So in this case, I may not use that same toward piece for a while. I'll bring it down here. And we'll make another stair down that way. And let's see, let's change it up. That stair is going to be a little out of proportion. And you notice it's going the other way?
Right.
But how interesting is that?
Very interesting.
I wouldn't want to, for insurance purposes, work on that stairway, but it's okay. And I'm going to give this one a little 3D treatment, so it looks like a square in perspective, or a step in perspective.
Oh my, yeah.
So we've gone from coming down this way to coming out this way, maybe.
Right.
Who knows? It's all in the deranged mind of McPherson. Okay, and we're coming down here, get near the bottom of the stairwell. It's all a matter of the dance. You'll notice everything here feels like it's got movement to it. And again, not one pencil line. There's not one piece on here where I've just sort of indicated where I'm going. You know exactly where I'm headed with this technique. And that's how my brain sees it. I'm looking for the proportions. I'm looking for the triangle here. I'm looking for the long rectangle. Do I decide, well, if the stairs only come down to a point, do I bring them past the water line? Who knows? You're open to anything at this point. I can make the stairway go the other way. On a painting I did similar to this, I did a big diagonal, and I put rocks in the water. Now I had a bunch of paint, yellows and blues and all kinds of stuff. It's called a Ballast Point J6FF. I sold it at the Oceanside Museum of Art to a wonderful couple from Martha's Vineyard. Big 38-inch watercolor. And what I did was I came into the ocean and I made circular cuts, like ovals, in my tape, and I lifted that and I made that a rock with a magic eraser. And I could make the rock look like it was underwater, or really underwater, depending on how dark it was.
Changing the depth with the
You
magic
bet.
eraser. Wow. Who knew? I never would have thought of using a magic eraser.
And that's why I'm a local boy, but I'm internationally famous. No. Okay, so that's enough for me to do right now. Now I need some railings. Okay, so I don't care that I'm gonna have a cut mark on my paper. This is not a place I'm gonna do any taping to, but I'm just gonna come in the meantime, and I'm gonna make myself a rail. Right about there. Just a vertical that will hold the handrail. And there's where you got to be careful about cutting through. So I just raised that piece of tape and I didn't want to do that. Okay, rail number 1. And this is still a pretty interesting shape, so I'm going to put a second rail in. Coming down there. And I kind of like the idea that it came into the wave, so I made one cut and then I'm going to move that piece down. Not like reinventing the wheel that way. All right. So we'll put our rails in, and then I think it's time for paint. Again, this is an abbreviated process. I am not showing you all the hours that it takes to get to this point, because we don't have that kind of time. And thank you, by the way, to Mary Jo.
Nancy, but that's okay.
Or Nancy. I did that before. Why do I call you Mary Jo?
I don't know.
You need to be on the Beverly Hillbillies, evidently. Nancy Jo and Charles Dozer, the cameraman. For their time, I appreciate the effort. Okay, so Doesn't really matter if all the tape overlaps. Oh, that was a nice happy accident. I like that.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Little tear, little straight.
Perfect.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, again, we got a really interesting dynamic going here. Okay, we're gonna put in a little bit. I normally do more than one shack, but for right now, I'm not really gonna worry about it. The nice thing about this is if I come back later, well, and I will, I'll take this painting back to the studio with me and I'll finish it there. The hardest part with doing something like that is trying to keep the of the moment idea going, which can be kind of a pain sometimes. You want it to look as fresh when you get back to the studio as when you were doing it out here in the pseudo real world that we all live in right now. All right, I'm just designing some shapes that could be interesting and give me a little bit of a block over to the one side. That's actually kind of an interesting piece, so I'm just gonna leave it. I don't know what that is. Looks like ground, something, who knows? And we'll continue it over here, just because we can. And again, I'm not gonna cut this piece. I'm just gonna leave it like it is.
Nice thick one.
Yeah, you never know. Another fulcrum in there, okay? And let's see, oh, and this doesn't go here. So we can, let's see, what do we wanna do here? We got piers there. Oh, I need more piers. So I'm gonna cut one. Sorry, I didn't mean to stand in front of you there. There's a pier, and then I'm gonna tear slightly. I have people at the fair do this for me, it drives them crazy. I say, tear it down the middle, and nobody can. I said, that's okay, it doesn't really matter. That's too small. Okay.
So when you pull that tape off, is there ever like a cut mark where too much color leaks in?
Yes, and I count on that because it's another place for, like you just said, it's another place for the color to go that I'm not designing. I count on Mother Nature. She is a great painting partner. I count on Mother Nature to help me look like a better painter. I try not to outthink it. As soon as you think that you want a good painting, you'll never succeed. It won't work. So I never care if I get a good painting out of this. And that's a huge clue.
Well, I can see how you can make a little bit of a puddle in a slightly left behind line like that from the cutting tool.
Yeah.
Work to your advantage as a darker kind of almost outline or border somehow.
Well, I'll give you an example. I'm going to cut the paper right here.
Oh no! You're killing me.
No.
Now, I'm not cutting through.
Right.
I've never done that. I thought, hey, now's the time, right? So you've seen something for the first time in the world done that way. A guy physically destroying his paper. But it'll be interesting to
Now
see
I'm
what
sorry
that.
I asked.
Yeah.
No.
And you can't see it. And that's
No.
the nice thing, is you don't know what's
You
going
don't
to be
know when
going
it's
on.
going to show up on
Right.
its own. Okay.
So, yeah, don't challenge me, man, because I will go after it.
Ooh, let me think. What can I ask you? I'm getting you back for calling me by the wrong name. How long have you known me?
Of course, we've had that talk before.
I know.
So here I'm going to put a piece down, same piece of tape, but I think I don't want a straight line because I want my pier to be more interesting. And that's kind of in the middle. I don't like this. It's the same proportion.
Same shape, yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, be very careful. Never do this. Never pull from the edge, because the fact is that the tape will, or the edge of the sheet will come with it. So we're going to do a slightly lower pier. Really good illustration of being able to reposition this stuff. I've rethought it. Okay, that works for me.
That's much better.
Yeah. Now I think, of course, it's much better. Oh, you know, the other thing is too, what'd be interesting is, let's say that this is a nice semi-quiet ocean scene. Well, what happens with calm water? and something that you see it twice.
Reflection.
Reflection. That's why I keep you around, Nancy.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a reflection of the shack. Again, hard to keep up with the brain. Let's see, and I want this to be that way. And I want it to be in water, so I've got this going. The only reason I made that cut, like an S, is that's how water moves.
Itty bitty ripple.
Itty bitty ripple. There's the roof. If I want the smoke, or if I want the stack there, right? Way too big.
It is too big.
So I'm gonna, thank you. So I'm gonna come through, I'm gonna ripple it again. Now I wanna see what the ripple is, so I'm gonna pull it first, because I want it to be fairly similar to what's already there. There we go. Now I've got an automatic shadow, or reflection,
Nice.
with not a lot of work. And we can even put the window in there if we want. In fact, Nancy Jo, would you pull my Coronado boathouse up here for me, please? It's the one with the big red roof. Yeah. This is exactly how I made that reflection. I took these very cut out. This is a good example of this tape technique again. This is a fresh painting. I did this a few months ago. But it gives you an idea of what you can get away with detail-wise. There's a lot. I had to tape out every one of these and paint through it, and every one of these was taped out. But this is the kind of reflection that I'm looking at for this piece right now.
Did you tape out the white on the boats?
Yes, and I never took, in fact, this whole part of the painting, I completely erased because I didn't like the way the water worked. This reflection did not come out well. So I taped off this whole section, including the boats, and I magic erasered the whole thing gone, and I repainted it. Great technique.
It's a beautiful painting. Here, I'll take it from you.
Oh, thank you.
So it doesn't get dirty when you start
Yeah.
painting.
So we got our window in there, and I think we need a little bit of a line through there that will indicate some more ripple for us, maybe. And again, I don't have to get real crazy with it. Let's just put another one there. That feels about right. Some of this will hold, some of it won't. I don't really care. Oh, right underneath the window. I like that. And I like working in odd numbers. So we're going to put a third one right in there, but only on that side. Way more interesting. Okay, so for example, the edge of this tape is not gonna hold. There's not enough tape left on there, it's so torn up, but it doesn't really matter. And I think we're there. I think that's enough of a tape session. And this is just to hold out the initial color. So let's get rid of all our little shapes. Meet my little shape. Okay. And if I like a shape, I'll put it back in. This is interesting. I just put another, just to show you that there's no rules. I can reuse this stuff. Doesn't really matter if the shape doesn't quite work. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe that'll be a barrel or something eventually. And we'll put one over there. Don't know what that stuff is. Doesn't really matter. And rule of threes. Could just be cargo stuff that's sitting on the side. Okay. Anybody scared yet?
I just want you to get that one little piece from the side up there.
Oh, yeah, thank you. You want it? No?
Put it on the painting, I did.
That's right. I'll sign it for you.
I did.
Okay, so now I think we're ready to paint. I'm gonna come through. I know because we're vertical that every top part of these shapes is gonna wanna fill with water. So I'm just gonna get a little strong on the pieces that I want to survive as they exist. Oh, here we go. 4 and 5. Okay, I'm good.
You're
There's
right
9
there.
steps. As opposed to 12 steps, which I should be in. Okay, so let's throw some paint on this thing. Again, normally I'd have a giant bit of color on here, or a brush to put the color down. But I'm gonna come through with my Lucas color turquoise. That's what that color is. Love that color. And I'm just gonna start. I'm not gonna look. I'm just gonna go. Okay? Doesn't matter because I don't want this to look like I
Labored
concentrated.
over it, yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
You want it to look unlabored.
Exactly. It's like that's what this is all about. Okay, and some more of that. Let's just put in some of the heavier stuff. Now, can you see all the sanding lines that are starting?
Yes,
That's what it's
they're
about.
gorgeous.
We'll just start
I
some of
really
that.
like the sanding lines.
Yeah, it works really well, doesn't it?
Yes.
And because it's kind of a trapezoid shape, we're just gonna help it out a little bit. I'm gonna take some of my indigo. Come on, baby. And we'll throw some of that in right under the shack, because that might be a really interesting thing to have in dark. We'll start it up there as well. Need that to be a little less liquid. There we go. And this is why I have the hairdryer, because this would take forever to dry.
Yeah, but you want it fluid enough to flow
Yes,
and to drip.
and usually I try to scare it, so it does that anyway, but most of the time it doesn't work. All right, so we got that. I'm gonna take some corrugated cardboard, my next thing, and I'm gonna create some textures with this. I'm gonna use a 1-inch brush, that guy there, corrugated cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take some of the indigo, put a lot on my brush. And I'm gonna stamp and pull.
Oh,
Nice.
jeez.
This is what I was talking about. This is Mother Nature. She loves me. I have no clue what I'm doing,
Yeah.
nor do I think about what I'm doing. But that is wonderful.
Jeez.
We're gonna come in here. I purposely thought about which direction to put that just in case.
Uh-huh.
I do that a lot too. I'll probably have blue all over my face. But the whole idea is just getting enough interest going.
Right.
Okay, and then I'm gonna put a little bit, let's say we want a little green in there. And don't ask me what color I'm using, I don't care. It's just green. But I want some of that, I want some of that in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
I could use yellow on there as well to give my, oh, that's really nice actually.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit of hidden green. Now the problem with watercolor is it goes back 50%. So I pound this as hard as I can and then come back and try and make it as thick as I can because I know it's going back 50%.
Right.
All right, and because I've got it there, we're gonna put some over here as well. Just because you can use your toothbrush for that as well. If I want it to run a little bit, like I want some more of that down there, so I'm just gonna put a little bit of water on there and help it out. Your watercolor, as you know, or as you see from this, will only go where the water was before.
Right. There it goes.
See, it stops there and whatever.
Right.
So I'll just let it go. And we'll soften that a little bit. And just let it run. And And this is why I bring the hairdryer.
Mhm.
Talk amongst yourselves, as Mike Myers would say. Put me in paint with a hairdryer. All you pour painters out there who like to push color around, this is your technique. I also like to turn my work as I work.
Oh, jeez.
Hopefully that's still in camera.
Mhm.
And I think because we're just getting a little crazy with this. Oh yeah, jeez. Yeah, baby. Okay, that is a lot of color.
Yeah, it is, but it's great.
This is an abstract painting at this point.
Would,
You think, Chuck?
yeah.
What was your first clue? But I love doing this because I had a lady at the fair one time. She came in about 3/4 of the way through my demo. And I was doing this. I was painting sideways. And she asked me, she goes, well, how do you make the drips go sideways? She hadn't seen it at this angle. And so without missing a beat, I said, well, I use Chinese water because it flows the other way. She goes, oh, that's fascinating. She will never own one of my pieces of work, needless to say.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it was, and she was dressed in Gucci. Who goes to the fair in Gucci? And okay, lady, you must have a decorator. Sorry.
Well,
I love the
as
red,
long as
but-
it matches her couch in the living room.
That's right. Okay, so now I've got 2 patches of red and orange. You don't have red and orange in the ocean. What's the clue? And because I'm a triadic painter, I'm going to put a 3rd area in there. Problem. What do you think, Charles? Orange or red? This is where I use him as an excuse. If this doesn't come out well, it's his fault.
Well, I like orange.
You like orange?
I do, but
I'm going to give you a little bit. It's orange, but it's kind of red at the same time.
yeah. Oh, yes. Love it.
In fact, I'm going to fill that all the way
Oh,
through.
jeez.
Okay. No fear. You just go. Don't care.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. Okay, noise again. Oh, look at that. Love it. Well, that's really thick, so I'm not going to be able to dry it all the way. I just want to dry it enough to get our shapes back up again. This hairdryer is all about stopping the progress of the paint. I don't have to take it pure dry. I just need it to be a little less liquid. Because when you go to start pulling the tape, which is what we're going to do next, this is the next step in the process. Look how fun that is. That is so an abstract painting.
I love it.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're gonna, now, areas like this that I've taped
Yes.
have no color on them, right?
Yeah.
If I peel that off right now, guess what? It all goes away.
It's
I can't
erased.
tell what it was.
Yeah.
It's erased.
So, yeah, part of me is gonna come in with a little bit of dirty water. That's all I need, just enough to remind me,
What's there?
yeah. What else?
The bottom.
Oh, over here.
Mhm.
Okay, and let's take a little bit, where's my green? I'm gonna take a little bit of the green. Oh, and you never ever wanna hold the X-Acto knife towards your belly button. I've been in surgeries, that's exactly what you don't wanna do. Where was I going with that? Oh, up in
Here.
here, there we go. Okay, we're walking through the grass. Okay, we're gonna make just another, we're gonna make that a fairly strong shape, I think. There we go. And we'll throw a little bit, let's see, try out again. So we'll throw a little bit over there. Throw a little bit, the reason I keep going over the house is the more color I have in these
Yeah.
divides, the more interesting it'll be when I go to finish it up. Because the beautiful thing about this technique, like that part of the house, I'm gonna leave that unpainted. So it will disappear. It could be real interesting. Same thing with this, it'll disappear. Let's see. Okay, so while I'm there, I'm having to outthink this now. I'm starting to think, oh, that's a terrible thing. I want a little bit of a yellow punch in my seawater, because now on top of the blue, as you can see, it's going to turn a little ocean green.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we call glazing. I dried the color underneath, and I can put this on top without stroking away the color down below. That's what we call a glaze. All those shapes will hold underneath this glaze of color. The important part is not to do it so hard that you lose the shapes underneath. That's kind of fun. Let's do a little cardboard. I'm going to pull a different piece of cardboard. This is a holder off a coffee cup. I use this a lot when I do landscapes because it makes great weeds. I can do that at home too, but
I got that.
yeah, thank you, Charles. Charles is my straight man, by the way, just so you know.
Nice.
Yep, and we'll balance it out a little bit. And I'm putting a lot of color on this. You can't be shy. Put some over there, like that. And maybe a little bit here, because this is now a reflection of this area. That's kind of nice, I like that. Yeah, I can live with that. Now, unfortunately, those are all the same size, but
You can glaze over them later.
I can fix it later, yeah. Not while the world is watching, as they say. So I think what we'll do is we'll just push that through. There we go. What a mess. Okay. But the nice thing about that last stroke is then I'll be an interesting mess.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so one more time with the loud hair dryer. And I want to control the flow. I do not want it running this way, so we turn it the other way. You'll notice too that all the sanding marks are still showing. And the more color you put down, the more they'll show to a point. Okay.
What number tape was this again?
This is number 2090,
The medium.
3M 2090 blue painter's tape, medium tack.
Medium tape.
There's a 2080, but 2090 is the medium tack. All right, so now comes the fun part. Now we're going to start taking things off. And you can take them off completely, or you can take them off in stages. That is one of my favorite parts of the painting, because all of a sudden you're getting all this really great graphic shape that you started with, and all this mess that you just put down. All of a sudden the whole thing will integrate like a good army. There's the roof. Now if I want to control where the roof goes, I can bring the edge of the tape up. Should I do this so you'll understand? No, I like the idea that it looks like I'm a genius. Okay. Oh, there's my little brush. Let's see, here we go. I'm gonna pull my number 12, and I'm gonna make black. I use two colors when I make black. Indigo and burnt umber. You do not need 3 or 4 colors to make black. Those are the two I use. It makes a nice, deep, soulless black. It'll go very down and not be happy. If you use ultramarine or anything like that, it won't work. Those two colors will give you the blackest black you can see. And the nice thing about that color combination is if I want a cool black, I push the blue. If I want a warm black, I push the brown. And if I want a neutral, which is what I'm after, well, maybe it could be a little warm in here, but if I want a neutral, I try and put an equal mix of those two in here. So I'm going to come over here, And I'm gonna paint a little bit of that in there. Wow, that's really nice. Okay, a little front. Now, I said that for my benefit, so I wouldn't go in and mess it up. I like the fact that that's short. This is very California style.
Right.
During the 60s and 70s, people like Bud Shackelford were doing things like this, except they were good enough not to have to use the tape. This is the style, this is the school style that I've been compared with quite a bit. And they said, it's basically California style, but you're adding a lot of happy color to it. I always like that description. Let's see, we're gonna put a little bit of a curve underneath, just because we can. I can make that a really dark area too, just to make those piers stand out. In fact, let's do that. I'm gonna take a lot more blue in this case, a lot more indigo, and you'll see the difference in the two blacks. This is the cooler black. And we'll let some of that red come through. I'm just gonna take all that out. That's
Wow,
all.
you're brave. You're brave.
Yeah, I can't do any wrong with this technique. If I do, tell you what I do. Somebody asked me one time, they said, have you ever done a bad painting where you just can't save it and you throw it out? I said, no, I've never done a bad painting. And everybody laughed because they think it was ego. I said, no, I've always learned something from all the paintings that I do. And that education is invaluable to me. And if I have a painting like this one, if it doesn't come out, I make greeting cards out of it. And people think I really care about them because I took all that time to watercolor them a custom card. Again, just glazing. I love the interesting shapes that you can get this way.
And the nice dripping.
Yep. Okay, so we'll give it a little hair dryer. Normally I'll put this on a lower setting, but for today, because we got to get through this quick, that's all I'm going to do.
Why would you put it on a lower setting? Are you afraid it's going to dry in a certain way that's too fast? Does it reduce the intensity of the color?
Well, it arrests the color from moving. So
Right.
what I like to do is I like to take it down slowly and help the color. I don't want to control the color. I want to suggest that it stop doing its thing.
Okay.
Like a lot of people do with me and my sense of humor. Just, it's not funny, Chuck, just stop it. Okay? So now, again, I've got plenty on here. I think we're ready to start taking all this stuff off for the purposes of the demo. The nice thing about this technique is I can come through and retape and do all kinds of, oh, that just disappeared. Where did my
Yeah,
thing
it
go? Where is it? Oh, I can't find it now.
Let me hold that
Yeah,
side
oh, wait.
while you fix it.
Well, I can hold that, whoop, slide it over that way, there we go. Yep, no, bring it this way, there we go, just, there you go.
Gonna stay?
So I love it. By the way, these clips that I have are 67 cents at Harbor Freight. I love
Yeah.
these clips. As a watercolorist, your paint supplies are stupid expensive.
Oh, no. Any kind of art.
Any kind of
Not
art,
just
yeah.
watercolor.
As soon as it say it's made for art, they
Yeah.
think we have all kinds of money. All right, so this, there we go. Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Okay, let's see, I'm gonna lose the one side of my shack. This is where I have to make certain decisions. Again, just a little dirty water, just so I know it's there. And I can come through here and start toning some of that at the same time. Sometimes that's some of my best technique, where I just, again, I'm in a hurry, I'm not
Just tone
thinking.
it a little, yeah.
Exactly.
And maybe that's enough once you do it in certain ways.
Well, and sometimes those are the best parts of the painting.
Right.
Again, if you try and make a good painting, I suggest you not Because it'll never come out as good as an accident will, in my opinion. I put the "in my opinion" in there for the lawyers. Because everybody likes to dispute stuff. Come on, baby. There we go. This is another reason I like the 140-pound cold press, because I can pound it and pound it and pound it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of abuse.
It does. It's a great paper. They've had a little bit of a problem with the chemicals, with the sizing.
Yeah. Why? What's happened?
Well, I don't know if I want to say that on camera,
Okay, don't.
but they had a lesser manufacturer come in and have a factory that they bought, and they make the paper. This is about 3 or 4 years ago. And because they bought that factory, they had the other company run it, and their quality level was not as good as what Arches was doing prior.
Right.
So they got a lot, probably about 3 years worth of watercolor paper where the sizing was a real issue. So you'll get little oil spots or places where it'll shift color. It can be very
I have
annoying.
some art school watercolor paper from a million years ago.
Yeah.
It's so fun. It's Arches. It's 400 pound.
Yeah. And Arches also is a professional grade. I always tell people, and it's gonna be terrible because it's gonna be on the net, I am not a Strathmore fan. Strathmore is made for people who are hobby painters or learning and can't afford good paper. This technique will not work on Strathmore. It won't let go of the color. The colors don't blend as well, and the tape will destroy the surface.
Let me ask you something, because I realized that we both had done our stints at Art Center in Pasadena
Yeah.
and downtown, I guess you start. As you speak about your approach to this work here, and you're talking about how it's intuitive and you have to let yourself go and dive right into it, and gosh, in the old, do you ever find that difficult now? Because did you ever go through a difficult stage? Because that's what I experience now in my work. I had such a rigorous training and downright classical,
Right.
where you planned things out, where you did thumbnails, where you sketched, where you thought, where you rethought, it's very hard to just let go. And in many ways, I envy people who are newer to it, that are
don't know
doing
much.
it, you know, like post-retirement people who are getting into it and turning out these wonderfully creative, beautiful pieces that of gorgeous, naive work, really, because they just happen to hit it, throwing the stuff on. What do you think about that?
Well, that's what
Comment on that.
That's what I'm doing right now. I'm pretending I'm a retired, not knowing much of anything technique-wise painter, because I'm letting the paper, the paint, and the moment, because I can't do this slow enough, to just control my thinking. Like you said with Art Center, it was 40 hours of class a week, and 40 hours of homework a week.
Yeah.
You did not have time to sleep.
You didn't sleep, you didn't eat, you didn't
Nope.
do anything else.
But that training makes us great designers.
And it was the Art Center way, for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So now you just tell yourself, go for it, Mr. McPherson, you can do it. Let it loose, let it rip.
Well, I prefer other people to say that to me, because otherwise people think I'm just talking to myself. But yeah.
You don't talk to your paintings as you move along?
Oh, heck no. No, I'm not a social being. Yeah, the reason I did that painting while I did was I wanted to show you the difference in, I took it off here, it was cut through, but I like the fact that that one's still there, and I'm gonna remove that as well. So I'm choosing not to utilize some of those spots. Now that's my wave, so I wanna sort of maintain that if I can. I don't know if that's real necessary anymore. By the way, once the tape is wet, it will not go down again. So if you take it off and try and reposition it, it won't work. That's the only drawback to this technique. You do it once, and you don't get a second shot. Oh, there's another. I count on these little things that catch my eye. Because again, it makes it way more interesting. That's gonna be one railing holder But because I did that, now it's more interesting, I think. It could be a water marker, height kind of thing, whatever. You never know. What you do with these, in fact, I don't think I've got my port scene here. You might check on the back. I've got a painting on the back of those as well. See if there's a scene with wharfs and stuff in there. I don't remember if I brought that or not. Yeah, that'll work. This is done in the same technique all the way through.
Oh, maybe you're in this one.
Oh, that's even better. This is a great, one of my early pieces. That's what this is gonna look like.
Tilt it this way,
This
there.
way? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's your shack. This is a stylistic kind of thing, but you also see all the lines through here. I had this taped off. Once I got this taped off and did all this, I came back in and I taped the outside of this and I did all my vertical strokes so I could control the shape. Same thing with all that. You can see the roof. I took a little pen in there. All my initial 6-inch brush strokes. There's some of the solid. There's my corrugated top. There's my corrugated cardboard again. Everything in this painting is done exactly like what I'm showing you now. And look how interesting, look how abstract this thing is, right? Thanks. So that's the point. All right, so now I've got somewhere underneath this red. I'm a little scared. There we go. Oh, baby. That's good taping. Look at that line. Love it. And that's what it's about. Now, the reason I took that off now is because I'm going to show you the difference between a white wave and a slightly toned wave. I can give it a lot of character. Let's pull all this off. How are we doing time-wise?
We're fine.
Okay, good. Whoop. And I just tore the paper. That happens. But now I've got an interesting texture to work with.
I was gonna say,
Right,
it's added
right.
texture.
Right.
Yep. It didn't go all the way through, so I'm good with that. And I'm just gonna use a little water. I'm not gonna use any paint. I'm gonna use a little water on here just to pull some of the color across. Yeah, exactly. Love it.
Fascinating.
Look at the control. You've got, even with the tape being off, I can tell it, actually I want this one to go in front of that wave. So I'm just being cautious as far as where that wood was. I'll just put a little orange edge on it. So let it do its thing. I'm gonna come in there, I'm gonna soften that a little bit and
Yeah,
give
it has to
myself.
go, if the other one's going in front of the wave, that one does too.
Yeah.
No offense.
Yeah, that's okay. Because I can come in later with a heavy blue, for example, and fix that up and make it really interesting.
Yeah.
But this will be a good introduction for how this technique can be a creative partner, basically.
Yeah, it's just fascinating.
Now, we've got all that. I could sit and remove tape all day long, and I will go back and do it, but I want to show you how to get this reflection
Yeah, I'd like
to
to see
hopefully look like it's underwater. Pretty wet in there, which is
that. You
kind
want
of
to
good.
dry it a little bit because it's really dripping.
Maybe.
Yeah, before you take it all off.
Well, and you'll notice too that it is holding. That's a fascinating thing about watercolor. It will only go, as long as it's not too wet, it'll only go where the watercolor was before.
Down to the edge, yeah.
Down to the edge. Watercolor creates a slight dam. I love swearing on camera. That will stop the watercolor in its tracks. But it's microscopic. You can't really look for it.
Right.
Okay, there we go. And here's the roof. And I tore the paper again. Don't care, that's how wet it is. All right, now because it's underwater, this is how I did the rocks as well. I'm gonna take my yellow. Yeah. I'm gonna paint right through
Yeah.
all that. And you gotta be careful because as I'm stroking, the more I stroke the paper, the more color will come up. Because all this re-wets. One of the things with watercolor that you don't get with oil, you don't get with acrylic. It will re-wet itself and make a new color combination between the two that were on there originally. And that's probably right here. So like this is really dark blue, so I can come through and I can make that sit back quite a bit. So not only do I have my reflection there, but now I've got some reflection with different shapes going as well. I'm gonna pour some more teal in there. Put it at the top. And if you're smart enough to let it do its thing, you stop stroking. And you let the watercolor work for you. Except the hair thing won't work. Come on. Thank you. I mean, it's water, so why not use fluid to create water, right? Yeah, and then you can see where all these lines and stuff were. If I want to, I can come through and I can remove a lot of that, which I do a lot. I'll use my towel to come through and actually paint through a spot, and I can use my magic eraser. Now these should be
Oh,
clean.
good. I was going to ask you if you could do that. I really
Next
want
thing?
to see that.
Yep. Okay, so I
Wait,
want to.
did you wet it?
Yes, I wet it. I dip it in the water. I wet it once, and I squeeze it out.
Okay.
And you can see how much color it can be removed. There's a lot of color in this thing. So what I want to do, and this is where you could, if this was all dry, I'd come back in and tape this off, so I get a nice square representation of that. And I can also paint with that as well. So it's very quote unquote mixed media at that point.
Uh-huh.
There we go. But I think, again, it adds to that etch quality that I was getting with the sandpaper. So I'm just going to come through here a little bit. Less I care, the better it looks. There's that wave back again. Now that's not taking the color off. The color has to be dry before you can remove it with the magic eraser. I removed it a little bit here, but I wasn't counting on everything coming up. I will be able to take 90% of that up.
Once
But
it's dry.
Yeah, once it's dry. So let's try that one spot. You'll notice the edges, a lot of water. But I never worry about it because that actually becomes part of the character of the painting. Now, in order to tell if the painting is dry enough, you use the back of your knuckles, you put it up against the paper. If it's room temperature or warmer, that means the paper's dry. If it's cool, that means it's still wet.
Yeah.
And with watercolor paper, the moisture doesn't sit on the surface, it goes into the paper. In this point, cold press has a little bit of a weave to it, so it accepts more water.
The fibers,
If
yeah.
if this was hot press, it wouldn't work that way. So now we're gonna take this.
Do you ever paint on hot press?
Which?
Do you ever paint on hot press?
I used to, but I don't like it because it's too defined.
Too slick.
Yeah.
Then it's just.
Okay, so I want to reflect. This is how I did the windows in the water, for example. Yeah, I'm gonna line that with the bottom of that. I think that's an interesting shape.
That's to protect the edge when you use the eraser on it?
Yeah, because what I want to do is everything that isn't taped is what I'm going to remove. So I have to decide. In this case, I could make an exact shape here by putting another piece of tape on there, but I like the lost edge, basically.
Right. So does that, I mean, what does that have in it? Does it have some kind of a bleach in it or something?
No. Actually, that's an interesting point. When I, there it is. When I first started doing it, I thought it had bleach in it.
Right.
And I had a lady in the audience that yelled at me, "You don't know what you're talking about. There's no bleach in a magic eraser." Blah. And I went, "Well, lady, settle down. It's the fair. I don't get paid to do this."
She works for the company or something?
No, she turned out to be a very dear friend, and she was right. I went to Wikipedia and looked it up. And the original Mr. Clean Magic Eraser has no bleach, no chemicals in it. It's simply glass beads that are on the molecular level. They scrape them. So they make little spores. You know those spores you step on when you walk with your dog and they hurt? On the microscopic level, this is just silicone that's been scraped.
It's just grounding down.
Yeah, it's like using sandpaper. Fascinating. Because watercolor paper, I know people that use bleach and stuff, and it'll rot after a while. It'll go away. Now, oh God, the water should be clean, but we'll find out. Whoop. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to control the top edge with the top of the magic eraser. And I'm not pushing very hard. This is the one part that everybody makes a mistake on. They try to scrub it like it's their kitchen sink. It's not what you do. You're coercing the paint off.
Scrub and lift.
And you always want to take about half of what you think it needs, because once it dries, it'll go lighter. So then I'm going to take a nice clean towel and I'm going to pat that. Notice how much color came up?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Looks like an oil painting. Duh. So I can do that over and over and over again. The dangerous part is when you start taking the nap off the paper. If you do this and you start seeing little balls of paper, you've rubbed too hard. So I patted it first. Now I'm going to rub it. That brings up the color more. Now that still looks kind of grayish, but watch this. It used to drive Jim Millard crazy
You're
because
going to dry it, right?
he sees blue as not a white. Gave him a headache. See how much brighter that is when you peel the blue off?
Right.
There we go. And now I've got a shape that nobody can figure out how I did it. And that's how you win awards. The trick to making a juror give you an award is that you have to do something and they can't figure out what you did. Drives them crazy. I know, because I'm a juror. And if a painting does that for me, I will give it an award because it's somebody that thought of something that I can't decipher.
Yeah.
So look at all the depth. Look at all the perspective you've got in this thing as far as the subject goes. And again, it's all underwater, so this kind of stuff will stay nice and bright and crisp. In fact, let's do a couple piers, for example. They're wood. I don't like using brown right away, but I'm going to in this case.